Emperor Vossitar's satisfaction was evident in the way his biomechanical enhancements glowed with increased energy. The Kreks had evolved beyond the limitations of biological form, integrating their bodies with adaptive technology that allowed them to modify themselves for any combat situation. They saw the Federation's diverse biological species as primitive relics clinging to obsolete evolutionary patterns. The first Kreks attacks would come simultaneously across 37 systems, targeting key Federation worlds with overwhelming force. The plan was simple and brutal. Destroy the Federation's ability to coordinate a response, then methodically conquer sector after sector until the entire galaxy submitted to Kreks' rule. What the Kreks didn't know was that their intelligence networks had completely overlooked humanity. The Observer class designation meant that human worlds weren't considered strategic targets worthy of detailed analysis. In the vast databases of Kreks intelligence, humanity was mentioned only as a minor trading partner of no military significance. This oversight would prove to be the first crack in what the Kreks believed was a perfect invasion plan. Humanity's hidden. Preparation Captain Sarah Martinez stood on the observation deck of the Earth Defense Station, watching the seemingly routine traffic of merchant ships and exploration vessels moving through the Sol system. To any outside observer, it appeared to be exactly what the Federation expected, a peaceful species focused on trade and scientific research rather than military development. The reality was far different. For over 2 decades, since humanity's first contact with Federation species, human military planners had been quietly preparing for possibilities that their alien neighbors couldn't imagine. The Federation's classification system was based on observable military assets and aggressive behavior patterns, completely missing the type of preparation that humans excelled at. Status report on Project Deepwatch, Captain Martinez requested. From her tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander David Park. All monitoring stations are operational and maintaining cover protocols. Park responded, consulting displays that showed a vast network of sensor arrays hidden throughout human space and beyond. We're tracking Federation fleet movements, trade, route patterns, and communication protocols across 14 sectors. The aliens still have no idea we're watching them. This was humanity's greatest advantage, the ability to learn and adapt while appearing completely harmless. While the Federation saw humans as a species that avoided conflict, human strategists had been studying every aspect of galactic civilization, identifying strengths, weaknesses, and potential threats that the established powers ignored due to their own assumptions about galactic stability. Dr. Lisa Wang, head of the Human Defense Research Institute, joined the conversation via secure hologram. Captain Martinez, our analysis of the archaeological findings on Kepler 438c has produced some remarkable results. The mathematical principles we've discovered are already being integrated into our defensive systems. If our theories are correct, we may have access to technological approaches that no other current species understands. The implications were profound. Humanity had been classified as technologically derivative, but their scientists had actually been developing innovations that built upon both Federation knowledge and the ancient principles discovered in the ruins. Human ships that appeared to use standard Federation designs actually incorporated adaptive systems that could modify themselves based on changing tactical requirements. What about our psychological warfare capabilities? Captain Martinez inquired, referring to humanity's most unique military asset. Dr. Wang's holographic image smiled slightly. That's where we truly have an advantage that no other species possesses. The Federation classifies species based on their biological and technological capabilities, but they completely ignore the psychological dimension of warfare. They assume that superior technology and greater firepower will always determine the outcome of conflicts. Humans understood something that other species had never needed to learn: how to fight against superior opponents by turning their assumptions and expectations against them. Every human military officer studied not just tactics and strategy, but psychology, sociology, and behavioral analysis. They knew how different species thought, how they made decisions under stress, and most importantly, how to make them make the wrong decisions. As Captain Martinez reviewed the latest intelligence reports, She noticed increasing activity in the outer rim territories, ships moving in patterns that suggested military preparation, rather than normal commerce or exploration. The signatures didn't match any known Federation species, which meant someone new was preparing to enter galactic affairs. Lieutenant Commander, Park, increase monitoring of outer rim activities to priority level 1. If someone's planning something big, I want to know about it before the Federation does. The pieces were falling into place for events that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of power, intelligence, and the true nature of species that appeared weak to those who didn't know how to look beneath the surface. The Awakening, the Krex. Invasion begins. The attack came without warning at Oro 347 Galactic Standard Time. Across 37 systems, Krex battle fleets dropped out of hyperspace and began systematic bombardment of Federation worlds. The coordination was perfect, the timing flawless, and the destruction absolute. Within the first 6 hours, 12 major Federation worlds had been rendered uninhabitable, their planetary defense grids overwhelmed by technology that exceeded anything in the known galaxy. Fleet Admiral Kortak received the emergency reports aboard his flagship, the Draconian Fist, while reviewing routine patrol assignments in the Centauri sector. The holographic displays surrounding his command chair lit up with red emergency indicators as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. "Sir, we're receiving distress signals from 37 systems simultaneously," reported his communications officer, her scaled features showing the stress patterns that Draconians displayed under extreme pressure. "Fleet Command is requesting immediate mobilization of all available forces." Kortak studied the tactical displays with growing alarm. The attack pattern showed a level of strategic planning that suggested the enemy had been studying Federation military doctrine for years. Every target had been chosen to maximize disruption while minimizing the Federation's ability to coordinate a response. "Analysis of enemy capabilities?" Kortak demanded from his tactical officer. "Unknown ship configurations, weapon systems that appear to integrate biological and technological components. Energy output exceeds our most powerful vessels by approximately 300%. Their shields are adapting to our weapon frequencies in real time. Sir, they're not just more powerful than us. They're technologically superior in ways we didn't know were possible." The reality of the situation became clear as more reports arrived. The Krex weren't just another aggressive species attempting territorial expansion. They represented a level of technological advancement that made the Federation's military forces obsolete overnight. Chancellor Vexathara convened an emergency session of the High Council within hours of the first attacks. The crystal chamber that usually echoed with calm deliberation now pulsed with the urgent communications of a civilization under threat. "Casualty estimates?" she requested, though her crystalline features showed she already knew the numbers would be catastrophic. Defense Minister Quilnara's cybernetic systems processed incoming data at maximum capacity. Preliminary estimates suggest 17 billion dead in the first wave. Planet-side populations on 12 worlds completely eliminated. Fleet losses approaching 40% of deployed forces. At current rates of loss, Federation military capacity will be eliminated within 72 hours. The mathematical precision of the attack was as terrifying as its scope. The Krex had calculated exactly how much force would be needed to cripple the Federation's ability to resist, and they were executing their plan with mechanical efficiency. "Recommendations?" Chancellor Vexathara asked, though the question seemed almost pointless given the magnitude of the crisis. Fleet Admiral Kortak's image appeared via emergency hologram, transmitting from his flagship as it raced toward the nearest combat zone. "We need to coordinate with every available military asset. Contact all member species regardless of classification. Even observer-class civilizations might have resources we can use." Humanities Response Captain Sarah Martinez received the Federation's emergency broadcast while reviewing reports from Humanity's hidden monitoring network. The Krex invasion was unfolding exactly as her psychological warfare analysts had predicted. It might, though the scale exceeded their worst-case scenarios. "Lieutenant Commander Park, what's our assessment of Federation survival probability under current conditions?" Park consulted data streams from across the galaxy, human sensor networks providing far more detailed intelligence than the Federation possessed about their own situation. Based on current loss rates and Krek's tactical patterns, the Federation has approximately 68 hours before their military capacity falls below sustainable levels. After that, organized resistance becomes impossible. Dr. Lisa Wang joined the emergency conference via secure hologram, her research teams having worked around the clock since the invasion began. Captain, our analysis of Krek's technology shows they're using principles similar to what we discovered in the ancient ruins. The difference is, they've weaponized these concepts while we've been focusing on defensive applications. This was the moment humanity had been preparing for without knowing it. Every psychological study, every tactical analysis, every innovation in adaptive technology had been leading toward facing an enemy that the conventional powers of the galaxy couldn't understand. Dr. Wang, how long do you need to modify our defensive systems for offensive capability? 12 hours for basic integration, 48 for full optimization. But Captain, there's something else. The Krek's technology isn't just advanced, it's predictable. They're following logical patterns based on mathematical principles. If we can disrupt those patterns, their adaptive systems might actually work against them. Captain Martinez made the decision that would change galactic history. Initialize Operation Silent Thunder. All human forces are to maintain observer class profiles while implementing full combat readiness protocols. The Federation thinks we're too weak to matter and the Kreks don't know we exist. Let's keep it that way until we're ready. Across human space, a transformation began that no outside observer could detect. Ships that appeared to be fleeing civilian evacuation vessels were actually moving into strategic positions. Research stations that seemed to be shutting down were activating weapon systems that no other species had ever seen. Communication arrays that appeared to have been damaged by Krek's attacks were actually coordinating the most sophisticated military operation in galactic history. The Federation's desperate gambit as the Krek's invasion entered its second day, the Federation's military situation became hopeless. Emperor Vostar's forces had anticipated every conventional tactic, countered every standard strategy, and adapted to every weapon system that Federation forces could deploy. Fleet Admiral Kortak found himself commanding a fleet that was being systematically dismantled by an enemy that seemed to know his every move before he made it. The draconian warrior culture had prepared him for death in battle, but not for this kind of helpless technological obsolescence. Emergency transmission from Chancellor Vexithara, his communications officer reported. The Chancellor's holographic image appeared on the bridge, her crystalline features showing stress fractures that indicated extreme emotional pressure. Admiral Kortak, the Council has authorized Protocol Omega. Kortak's scaled features shifted in surprise. Protocol Omega was the Federation's ultimate contingency plan, a desperate measure that had never been implemented in over 2 millennia of galactic civilization. It authorized the use of any and all available resources, regardless of previous classifications or restrictions. You're authorized to make contact with all observer-class species and request any assistance they can provide. We're also releasing all restricted technologies for immediate deployment. At this point, we're facing extinction. The irony wasn't lost on Kortak. The same species that the Federation had dismissed as militarily insignificant were now their last hope for survival. Humanity reveals its true nature. The first indication that the Kreks might have miscalculated came when their advance fleet approached the human colony world of New Geneva. Intelligence reports suggested it was a typical observer-class settlement with minimal defenses and no military significance. The attacking force consisted of only 3 Kreks vessels, more than sufficient to eliminate what appeared to be another helpless target. Captain Zexmore commanded the lead vessel, confident that this would be another routine destruction mission. His ship's sensors detected the expected pattern: civilian vessels fleeing the system, emergency broadcasts requesting Federation assistance that would never come, and defensive installations that appeared to be powering down rather than offering futile resistance. Target planetary infrastructure and prepare for ground assault, Zexmore ordered, following standard Kreks doctrine for dealing with inferior civilizations. That's when the human trap sprung. The civilian ships that appeared to be fleeing suddenly changed course and revealed themselves as heavily armed vessels using sensor masking technology that the Kreks had never encountered. The defensive installations that seemed to be shutting down actually activated weapon systems based on principles that the ancient ruins had revealed to human scientists. Most devastating of all, the humans did something that no other species had attempted. They turned the Krex's adaptive technology against itself. Every Krex vessel was designed to analyze enemy weapons and automatically develop countermeasures. But the human weapons weren't based on energy projection or kinetic force. Instead, they projected information, carefully crafted data streams, that caused the Krex adaptive systems to modify themselves in ways that created cascading system failures. Captain Zexmore watched in amazement as his own ship's technology began adapting to threats that didn't exist, creating vulnerabilities that the humans then exploited with conventional weapons. Within minutes, his supposedly invincible fleet was drifting helplessly in space, their crews intact but their ships completely disabled. The reports that reached Emperor Vostar were unlike anything in Krex military history. An observer class species had not just resisted the invasion, they had completely neutralized a Krex attack force using tactics that no species in the known galaxy possessed. The tide turns word of humanity's success spread through both Federation and Krex communication networks within hours. For the Federation, it represented the first hope they had experienced since the invasion began. For the Krex, it represented their first encounter with a form of warfare they couldn't understand or counter. Captain Sarah Martinez stood before the Emergency Assembly of the Galactic Federation Council, the first human ever to address the governing body of galactic civilization. The crystal chamber that had once dismissed humanity as insignificant now hung on her every word. "Honorable counselors," she began, her words translated into every language spoken by Federation species. "Humanity requests immediate military alliance, status and authorization to implement our defensive strategies on a galactic scale." Chancellor Vexathara responded with what might have been amazement if her crystalline physiology could express such emotions. "Captain Martinez, our intelligence indicated that your species possessed minimal military capabilities." Martinez smiled, a human expression that most Federation species had learned to recognize but never truly understood. "Honorable Chancellor, your intelligence was completely accurate. We do possess minimal military capabilities as you understand military capabilities. What we possess instead is the ability to make our enemies' superior capabilities work against them." The demonstration that followed changed the galaxy forever. Human technicians worked with Federation engineers to implement psychological warfare protocols that turned the Krex's own adaptive technology into a weapon against them. Ships throughout the Federation fleet were equipped with information warfare, systems that caused Krex vessels to adapt themselves into helplessness. But humanity's greatest contribution wasn't technological, it was strategic. For the first time in galactic history, a species approached warfare not as a contest of strength against strength, but as a complex psychological operation where victory went to whoever better understood their enemy's assumptions and expectations. Emperor Vossitar found his perfect invasion plan falling apart as human psychological warfare techniques spread throughout Federation forces. Krex commanders discovered that their tactical advantages became disadvantages when facing opponents who understood how to turn superior technology into a weakness. The New Galactic Order. The war ended not with a climactic battle, but with a series of Krex surrenders as their forces found themselves increasingly unable to function against human-designed countermeasures. Emperor Vostar himself surrendered aboard his flagship when human infiltration specialists demonstrated they could take control of his ship's adaptive systems remotely. In the aftermath, the Galactic Federation underwent the most significant reorganization in its history. The classification system that had dismissed humanity as insignificant was completely restructured to account for forms of intelligence and capability that traditional military analysis couldn't measure. Captain Sarah Martinez, now promoted to Admiral of the newly created Adaptive Warfare Command, stood once again before the Federation Council. This time, however, she wasn't requesting assistance. She was helping to redesign the fundamental principles of galactic civilization. The lesson of this conflict, she addressed the assembled representatives, isn't that humanity is somehow superior to other species. The lesson is that every species has capabilities that can't be measured by traditional standards. The Federation's greatest strength isn't military power or technological advancement, it's diversity of thought and approach. Chancellor Vexithara, her crystalline features now showing patterns that indicated deep respect, posed the question that everyone was thinking. Admiral Martinez, how long had your species been preparing for this conflict? Martinez's response summarized everything about humanity's approach to challenges that seemed impossible. Honorable Chancellor, we weren't preparing for this specific conflict. We were preparing for the possibility that someday we might face opponents who were stronger, faster, and more technologically advanced than we were. We prepared by learning to turn those advantages into weaknesses. The galaxy had learned that the species they dismissed as observers had actually been the most observant of all. Humanity had studied every aspect of galactic civilization, not to conquer it, but to understand how to protect it from threats that conventional military thinking couldn't comprehend. As the Federation began implementing human-designed adaptive defense networks throughout the galaxy, a new era of galactic civilization began. The age of judging species by their apparent military strength was over. The age of recognizing that intelligence, creativity, and adaptability could overcome any level of technological superiority had begun. And, in the quiet research stations, throughout human space, scientists continued studying the ancient ruins that had provided the mathematical foundation for their victory. The galaxy was vast, full of mysteries and potential threats that hadn't yet revealed themselves. Humanity would continue watching, learning, and preparing for whatever challenges the universe might present. The species that had been dismissed as too weak to matter had become the galaxy's greatest protectors, not through strength or conquest, but through understanding that true power came from knowing how to turn any opponent's advantages into their ultimate weakness.